What is up, all you literary femmes and gents? It is your girl Deja, and I'm back with a brand new video. So I realized there's a whole bunch of really negative things going around nowadays. If you turn on the news, it's how it usually is, depressing. But it's really kind of hitting closer to home for a lot of people. So I kind of figured I would just do my part, kind of spread some positivity, give you guys something to distract yourselves with. And this is also a distraction for me, making videos and content for you guys. So that's why I'm here. And today we're going to talk about something that I am very recently acquainted with: podcasts. So we're going to be talking about 3 podcasts in particular, all 3 very different genres. So if you don't like one of these, I'm pretty sure one of the other 2 might be something for you. So we're just going to go down the list, starting with my favorite. Well, I love them all, but we're going to start with my favorite, and then we're just going to go down the list from there. The very first podcast I want to talk to you guys about is called the Magnus Archives. It is distributed by Rusty Quill. It is written by Jonathan Sims, and it is directed by Alexander J. Newell. So this is a supernatural horror anthology podcast. I realize that is a mouthful, but it is amazing. So for those of you that don't know, every time I've ever tried to listen to an audiobook, it never actually quite got my attention, because I would be bored with the performances, or I would get distracted, or it just wasn't really catching my attention. I listened to the first episode of this podcast and I was just, and I think it's because it is an anthology, so every episode is a standalone short story, but each one of those short stories has an overarching plot. So currently there are 4 seasons of the Magnus Archives, and the 5th season drops April 2nd. I am beyond pumped because the ending of season 4 had your girl through the wall only to replaster it and then go back through it again. It was that extra. I'm that extra. So yes, this podcast, like I said, is a supernatural horror podcast. So there are things like monsters and entities and things like that. And the way that the podcast is set up is that you are listening kind of as an omniscient being, right, through tape recorders to a guy that is archiving supernatural stories that people come into their archives to talk to them about. So for instance, if I had a run-in with something very strange and I need to talk to somebody, I would go to the Magnus Archives located in London, and I would tell them my story. And Jonathan Sims, who is the head archivist of the archives, would turn it from a paper copy into a digital copy. So that's what you're listening to, is him reading all the statements and then turning them into digital copies. Now, the plot gets super complex but very readable and understandable at the end of season 1, and then it just goes uphill from there, and it has continuously been going uphill. I could spend forever and a day ranting and raving about this podcast, but I'm not going to. Let's move on to the second one. So I've written my notes on my phone. So the second podcast is called The Outliers. It is produced by the Historic Royal Palaces and Rusty Quill. Now this is a historic fiction podcast, and it has multiple authors. So this podcast is really cool. So literally Outliers is about people who have been kind of lost to history, because history is written by the victors. So those people who try to usurp a king, or people who started foundations and things like that, or just people who have slipped through the cracks, basically. They employ different authors who all are doing their own thing to write these short stories and narrate them of these people. And after every episode, the next episode is always an interview with the author. So they ask them questions like, what inspired you to pick this character? Why did you go this route? Because some of the authors are just let's write it from the first point of view. Some of the authors are just let's write it from the point of view of somebody close to them, and they're all different. And they're really cool. So if you guys like historical fiction, if you guys like learning about new people, especially like I said, people that have slipped through the cracks, and you're not going to learn about in your history books, then I highly recommend that you guys listen to this podcast. It's called Outliers. The final podcast is called The Two Princes. This is produced by Gimlet. It is written by Kevin Christopher and directed by Mimi O'Donnell. Okay, so this is a high fantasy podcast, and it is so light, so fluffy, and it's so cute. So you follow these two princes named Rupert and Amir, who come from different kingdoms and meet each other in these woods when the woods start taking over the kingdom. Like literally, like the woods like come to life and start encroaching on the kingdoms. And so both princes set on a journey to kind of stop their kingdoms from being overtaken by this forest. And they meet up with each other and they embark on this really like epic adventure that also turns into a love story that also turns into like something really dramatic that turns even more dramatic in season 2. It's really good. It's like I said, it's super light, it's super fluffy. It's literally like, this one is literally like watching a TV show but without the actual visuals. And it's a really quick listen. I loved it. It made me really happy. I binge listened to this thing in one night. Should I have done that? No, because there's like 14 episodes and each one of them are like 20 something minutes long, so sleep that night? I don't think so. So there you guys have it. I'm really trying to hurry up and finish like this video because as you guys can tell, like I'm running out of sunlight. But these are the 3 podcasts I want to tell you guys about. So you guys have a supernatural horror one, you guys have a historical fiction, and you have a very light and fluffy high fantasy that is also LGBT plus representation. So I've listened to all of these podcasts on Spotify. I would definitely put in the links down in the description box below to all the different platforms or even to like the main website for these podcasts so that you guys can listen to them yourselves. So definitely something that you can listen to, something you can play in the background if you're like, feeling, a little world weary. This is something to help distract you guys. So I do have a couple more videos planned that I'm really excited about filming and getting out to you guys. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, you can hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more content from moi, you can subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!